on page 3 in your text. Beautiful quote by Alexis de Tocqueville. Man who came to America in the early 1800s with a question on his mind. What was different about the French Revolution and the American fight for independence? They had very different outcomes, you know. We gave birth to a tremendous country of freedom and opportunity. They went through a reign of terror and ended up with a dictator named Napoleon. How did that happen? Why did these two seemingly similar movements end up with such drastically different outcomes? And that was his question. And he came to America to try to answer that question. He said a lot of things. If you get a chance to read his book, and by the way, you'll need some time. Democracy in America is kind of like War and Peace. It's about that thick, about 1,000 words per page. That's probably an exaggeration. But if you get a chance to read what he had to say, I think you'd find this foreigner's observations of America in the early 1800s fascinating. But one of the things he said is a quote on page 3. And that's where we want to focus today. Just then, North America was discovered as if it had been kept in reserve by the deity and had just risen from beneath the waters of the deluge. Quite a statement. Just then. Just when? Why did then matter? Why not discovering it later or discovering it earlier? The then has a real connection, and that's where we want to spend our time today, to try to get you to understand the importance of America being discovered when she was discovered. It made us a very different nation than if we had been discovered earlier. The just then, God always has perfect timing. And America is a prepared land for a prepared people. And we need to look at that today and see if we can't get a handle on that. America began with very perilous beginnings. Realize it's just a wilderness from the Atlantic all the way across to the Mississippi. Yet from that wilderness and barely surviving, you know, the Pilgrims, half the Pilgrims were dead by spring. It was not an automatic that we were going to make it. When Jamestown was settled, the people that settled Jamestown, they'd already gotten on a ship and were leaving the harbor to go back to England when a relief ship showed up, and then the colony survived. It was not a foregone conclusion that England would create a foothold on this continent and build a civilization. The beginning was perilous. But from that beginning, we built the greatest civilization on the face of the earth. We began as an outpost of Europe. Yet now Europe and most of the rest of the world looks to America for the example of freedom and leadership. How could such a thing happen? Well, part of it was just then. And we'll take a look at Tocqueville's comment as we look at some other information. God kept this back. I met my wife in August of 1972. This will come as a shock to many of you, but I dated other girls before I met her. Yes, there were unintelligent women on this earth back then. I was almost married to some other girl, and God worked that out and did a miraculous thing in my life. I went off to college to get away from all that. I told God this: all I want is me and you. That's all I want. I want to grow in you. I want to get in your book. I want to just soak you up. For the next 3 years, it's just me and you. And I met my wife first day on campus. I've often looked back at that and asked myself the question, why then? Why then? It's because God's in charge of the timing. And when all I wanted was him, he said, fine. If all you want's me, I have a lot of other good gifts I'd like to give you. And there she was. I thought it was Satan tempting me to go back on my word. Oh no, this can't. But it was good. God did a marvelous work there. Timing is everything. You know, before I was saved, I was saved shortly before I went off to college. My wife would not have looked at me twice had we met before I met Christ as my Savior. She wouldn't have given me the time of day. Rightly so, by the way. Timing is everything. God took America and held her back. Didn't let anybody find her. Didn't let anybody see her until the time was right. This is a huge continent. 1/3 of the landmass of this planet is in this hemisphere. But for the vast majority of human history, nobody knew it was there. Well, Europeans didn't know it was there. The people living here were aware that it was there. How can such a thing happen? Well, the guy's name is Leif Erikson. He shows up about the year 1000. Now, keep in mind, he's there because he's been pretty much run off. He's done some bad things, and they run him off. And he comes over here looking for a fresh start. Found Nova Scotia, found what they called Vineland, which is where they found some wild grapes growing. Came all the way down to what we think is around the Chesapeake Bay area. We know they came as far as the Hudson River Valley because they went up that. We found some remnants of their civilization there. We know they came as far down as Long Island and had some settlements there. But they were only here about 150 to 200 years, and they disappeared again. And nobody in Europe ever knew they were here. So there was absolutely no consequences to the Vikings coming to America in the year 1000. God just said, no, I'm going to draw a curtain over this, and nobody over there is going to know anything about that. And that's a good thing. America is discovered in 1492, not 1000. Does that make a difference? Oh, it makes a huge difference. Let's find out who was...